We are doing this live from my car today, but we are going to be discussing how can we stay on track with fat loss this weekend over Easter. What does Easter mean? Why are we celebrating this? And remembering how to balance, because ultimately you're only going to be able to succeed in this fat loss journey if you're able to create some semblance of balance. Yes, we need to get uncomfortable. Yes, we need to be making sacrifices. However, ultimately, our habits are the things that are going to be the things that change us truly. If you do not build sustainable habits, you will not be able to maintain the physique that you create in your fat loss phase. So what we will do is discuss a few tips regarding how to stay on track with Easter. And I really just want to start with, let's just remember what the heck Easter even is, you guys. Easter is all about renewal. It is about rising from the ashes, so to say. This is the time Jesus died on Good Friday, saved our souls, and on Sunday, tomorrow, he will be rising back up from the dead as a symbol of renewal, of hope, and that is what I want you to remember throughout your fat loss journey as well. Even if you are not a believer, if you're not a Christian, that's totally okay. The point here is that you should be doing things in your fat loss journey that are fueling you, not doing things out of hatred or self-deprecation or self-doubt, right? You should be doing this from a place of love, from a place of wanting to become a better person on the other side. So with that being said, there's really 3 things that you can do on this weekend, and really every weekend in general. Every holiday is going to have really kind of the same guidelines. The first is making sure that when you do fill up your plate, you're focusing on protein and fiber first. Really, we want to see if we can get the fiber in first, because that will help prime the gut. It's going to make sure that you're not completely ravenous and starving before you start eating. So with this, if we're thinking about Easter foods, right, we're thinking maybe we have sweet potatoes. That's a great source of fiber. Hi, Cherie. What we could be doing as well is getting those green beans, roasted carrots, those vegetables. And if you think about how we typically will eat a meal, we will typically start with something like a salad or an antipasti, something that is fibrous and vegetable filled. And that is for a reason. It is because the fiber and the nutrients inside of those specific types of foods help line the gut in order to aid in digestion, but they also serve to help make sure that you don't overeat fiber. So the protein sources though, right? Typically we'll have like an Easter ham. Typically we will have maybe some roasted turkey or chicken. My recommendation is to start with the leanest type of protein first. In your fat loss journey, you're going to want to make sure that your calories are coming from more carbohydrates than they are from fats. Typically a good balance is 30% of calories from protein, 40% of calories from carbohydrates, and 30% of calories from fats. So 30, 40, 30. Ultimately, we can do this by making sure the protein sources that you get are filled with more protein than they are filled with fats. So this would be stuff like chicken breast. Very nearly 100% protein there. Chicken thighs are going to have a little bit more fat on them. If you think about, maybe it's not a great example. I mean, even just like if you were going to cook a human woman, right? There's going to be more fat on the thighs than there are like in the torso area for the most part. When we're thinking about how a lot of women are laid out, that's not everybody. Maybe that's not even a good example. But like birds, okay? A bird is going to have thicker thighs, thinner chest, okay? So the breasts are going to be the leaner meat. The thighs are going to be the fattier meat. Turkey is also going to be a great option. Ground turkey is a great option. Usually, though, more of a whole turkey situation for an Easter like this. And then, of course, we're going to have ham. Now, ham is going to be a little bit fattier of a meat. There are leaner and fatter cuts of a ham. I would recommend, if you have other protein sources, to just kind of maybe have a little bit of ham, but stay away from that as your primary source, because it is going to have just higher fat content. And if we're honest, me and ham are a little bit suspicious because pigs eat a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that they do not break down in their digestive system that could potentially be harmful. Not saying that ham is going to kill you, but it's a little bit more sus. Okay, so we've got your protein, we got your fiber. The next thing is making sure that the sweets you choose, you are trying to plan ahead of time. This should not be something that you are showing up and going, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to eat. This should be something where you can identify strategically what sweets are things that you could be enjoying and what are things that are just kind of overkill and not going to help you reach your goals. At the end of the day, we want to have balance, but you need to be held accountable to the choices you make. Every choice you will make in your nutritional journey will have a consequence. On this side, if you eat too many sweets, it's going to have the consequence of potentially your fat loss just taking a little longer. It could be that we don't see the results we want to see this week. Does that mean you're going to die and that it's done forever? No. Inhale, exhale. It just means we're paused a little bit longer. On the other side of things, if you eat absolutely no sweets, the consequence is maybe you just didn't get to enjoy sweets, but you're still on track with your fat loss. It ultimately comes down to your priority at the moment. I would assume if you're on a fat loss journey, your priority is both. So in order to balance this, what I would recommend doing, if you don't know the full menu ahead of time, that's totally okay. If you do, obviously then just pick from there. Pick 1 or 2 sweets that you could indulge in, have a little bit of them, and make sure that you are waiting after you have your meal. Have a little bit of water in your system, maybe a cup of tea to help the digestive system. Go for a little walk, which we'll talk about here later. And make sure that you're not just stuffing the face, consistently eating, right? Pay attention to your body. Most of the time, they say sweets go to the soul, not to the stomach, and that is because it signals some dopamine happening in our brain when we get that much sugar in our mouth and on our tongue. And so sometimes it can bypass what our stomach is trying to tell the brain. So it's important to check in with your body and see where you are at before you go in ingesting a bunch of sweets. The other thing is making sure that you're choosing these sweets wisely. If there's a homemade apple pie versus like a synthetically processed chocolate bunny, I would probably recommend let's go for the pie. Also because there's going to be real fruit in there. That means we're going to get a lot of calories. Yes, there will be added sugar, but we'll have some natural sugars in there as well. Some fructose, right? The sugar that comes from fruit. That's the type of sugar that is more so friendly than our added sugars. And especially like our corn syrups, overly processed sugars. Those things are going to spike the blood sugar a lot faster. Also with the apple pie, you're going to be able to get some fiber in that as well because there's going to be some potentially oats, flour, fiber from the skin on the apples if there's skin on them, etc. So keep in mind what is inside the sweet that you are going to be eating. Sugar, corn syrup, cocoa powder, or real fruit, real whatever. Keep that in mind. Cool. And then the other thing too, when you are finished with your meal, I would highly recommend going for a little walk afterwards, 10, 15 minutes, especially if it's nice outside on your Easter Sunday. Finish your meal, grab a family member, or maybe go on a group family walk, go outside and walk around. Or if you're like me and nobody else wants to go for a walk with you, just pace around the room, have your cup of tea, sip the tea, and walk around and wait for when everyone's going to have their coffee and dessert. Hi, James. So there's several ways that you can go about this. And the other thing too is to just keep moving. You could even stand, walk in place. It does depend a little bit on how comfortable you are with where you're at. If you're going to like a restaurant, fancy Easter dinner, I mean, maybe don't walk around the restaurant and pace, or you could go outside and walk around outside. It does depend on your situation, but ultimately if you can walk after you get your meal in you, it's going to help with the digestive process, but it's also going to make sure that you are regulating your blood sugar levels. It's going to help make sure that things are getting processed well. It's going to help in a lot of ways. So those are the 3 tips, right? Fiber and protein, filling up the first part of your meal, choosing your sweets wisely, getting a walk in after you go eat your dinner. And a bonus tip is to not show up hungry, right? If you are showing up starving, there's really not a lot of good that's going to come from that. I find that I fasted yesterday for Good Friday and then had dinner with a friend. And once I started having dinner, I started eating and my brain was so excited to be getting some fructose and sugar back that I was thinking like, oh my gosh, maybe after this I'll go get some ice cream and stuff. And I'm like, okay, relax, right? Just because we're finally getting food, the body can be like, ooh, let's go overboard very easily. So you don't need to starve yourself. You don't need to bank calories for your Easter dinner. You can be strategic though. Have a lighter breakfast, have a lighter lunch, especially if you want to have a little bit more sweets later in the day. Then maybe instead of having your fruit and Greek yogurt in the morning, maybe go for something that's a little bit more protein centric, like egg whites or an omelet. Okay. Balance those things. Make sure you're not going insane. And ultimately, this is all about spending time with the people you love. It's about celebrating and glorifying God. It is about renewal and strength and becoming a better version of yourself. So treat yourself wisely, treat yourself nicely. Does anybody have any questions or recommendations for Easter stuff? I will wait here a few moments to let people kind of chit chat and let me know. If you have a question, type it in the comments and I'm happy to answer. In the meantime, I will yap for about another 30 seconds. If you don't know me, my name is Coach Samantha. I help busy professional women build muscle, burn body fat, and do so sustainably without losing your effing mind. So I am also just keeping you kind of updated, I guess. I'm also a new Christian, was recently baptized 3 weeks ago now, and I'm very excited to be celebrating my first Easter weekend as a new Christian. So cool. Okay, if nobody has questions, I hope this was helpful. I will be posting this back onto my page and I will see you very, very soon. Oh, Octavia, she says, woo, counting calories. Do you have a question about how to count these calories? I will assume this is a question, and then you can follow up if the question is different. Here's the dealio with counting calories. If you are out and you're finding a meal that you did not make, I teach my clients to utilize the hand sizing method to kind of estimate portion sizes. What I recommend, take a photo of your meal with your hand in the picture next to the plate so that you can look back later and see protein or to see your portion sizes. So take a photo with your hand and then you can see, okay, so I'm getting about a palm's worth of protein. I will get about a fistful worth of my potatoes, really kind of starchier items. I'm trying to think of what would be on Easter. Maybe, I don't know, if there's rice, quinoa, pasta, those types of things, pasta salads. And then your vegetables, load up on the vegetables. I don't care how many you get. The more the merrier. Get those micronutrients in. Your fats will be typically about that thumb size. And so if we're thinking like avocado, stuff like that, a thumb size, right? Now, here's what I'll also say. Octavia brings a good point about overestimating the meals, so you hopefully don't go over. What would be really helpful is kind of, there's a few ways you can do this. I have a resource for my clients where you have a list of all the foods and all the retrospective calories and such, so you can kind of get an understanding of, how many calories are in a thing. However, what could be really helpful for you is that your chicken breast is going to have 24 grams of protein, and I actually have no idea. Let's just guess and say 300 calories. That's probably a lot, but thinking about that, what you can do then is prepare before you go in. You can sit there beforehand and create this list of foods that you think will be there, like a macaroni and cheese, and kind of estimate calorie-wise when you show up. So if you bring your list with you, it can even just be in your notes app on your phone, and you show up and you go, okay, I'm getting chicken breast, I'm getting sweet potatoes, I'm going to have maybe a little bit of that turkey, I'm going to have a slice of apple pie or whatever, I might have one piece of chocolate. Then what you can do is put that into your tracking app before you show up to get a good estimate of what is going to be the overall caloric intake. Overestimate that, especially if you're going to have alcohol like wine, whatever, make sure that's included too. So that when you do show up, you can eyeball the things you're having, looking at the portion sizes, and then realize, okay, this was either accurate or I need to adjust. That way you kind of have a general idea of the calories. You will never know for certain. It is a guessing game. And after a while of plugging things into the app, you'll be able to figure that out after a while. I just got some food out of my teeth. Anyway, cool. Any other questions regarding tracking, how to make this work over Easter? Any other questions? I'll leave another 30 seconds. Hey, Kim. What's up, girl? Kim's one of my clients. Again, if you're just joining or you're new, my name is Coach Samantha, and I help busy professional women lose body fat and build muscle without losing their mind. And we're waiting for questions. Little recap. Kim, you crack me up. I'm glad that this is a great way to hide from your in-laws. You can tell them that this was a mandatory call. But you know, if we're tracking while we're out, use the hand sizing method, estimate your portions, and you should be just fine. Well, Kim, sorry to give you away, but I will be closing this off now. I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you all very soon. Happy Easter!